Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. I hope you guys are waking up and feeling good out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great weekend out there so far. We got a few things to talk about in this morning's video as we try to figure out what's next. I think we're entering more of a quieter period to kind of round off February. I do think there's a couple little disturbances to watch, but all in all, no high impact storm system. Now, as we enter the early portion of March, I do think things are going to turn much more active, and I think we could have some significant storm systems. This is going to be more of a severe weather thing, a winter weather thing, kind of a mixture of both, a lot of rain, a lot of wind. Nobody knows any of that kind of stuff, but I do think things will get active as we get especially past March 5th. So I know that's pretty far out. So of course we don't have the details on any of that, but we will kind of build up to that period and we'll speak on kind of my thoughts, my opinions on a certain time period. And as we get closer, we will begin to hyper focus on any kind of storm system that may pop up on models and kind of stay consistent, right? Just like we always do, we kind of embrace the quieter periods, right? And then, we'll slowly enter a more active period because the weather never stays quiet. We know that. So we'll speak on that for the first half or first, 75% of the video. And then we'll talk about today's weather and get you covered there. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I'm going to spend some time this afternoon, get caught up with comments. I wasn't able to answer Friday morning's comments either, and just get caught up with everything and then stay caught up, especially since we are somewhere in that quieter period. I'm able to kind of keep up much better. So I'll get caught up with all that this afternoon, this evening sometime. And yeah, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can do that, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So this is the latest Climate Prediction Center outlook. It's the 8 to 14 day outlook, and this takes us pretty much into March. So the 2nd through the 8th of March. So we're starting to move away from the heart of winter as we enter what I would consider more of a spring month in March. But in the blue colors, this is where confidence is higher and temperatures being below average in that time frame I just mentioned. The darker the blue, the higher the confidence. So 33, 40, and then we get into a 50% chance of temperatures being below normal in this time period. And this kind of grayed out area could lean one way or the other. I always like to think of it like this, more of just a chance of being around average temperatures. Leaning towards above average temperatures down here in the southern plains, maybe areas of the Gulf coastline, and then into the southwest. And then we start to get into the west, and it looks like after a very warm period, I think over the next maybe like week, 10 days, maybe week, I would say, it should begin to cool off. As I think a lot of cold air could come down for early March standards as we get into this time frame. So that is the temperature outlook in that time frame, and here is the precipitation outlook. And you can see most of the lower 48 is in that green, which symbolizes a chance of above average precipitation. The lighter green 33, darker green here is a 40% chance of precipitation being above normal. So that pretty much tells us that we're going to have a lot of storm systems potentially flying around, and I think we're going to have some darker shades of green, meaning higher confidence and above average precipitation show up in some future outlooks over the next few days. So this is the latest from the Climate Prediction Center. I always like showing this right off the dot when we're trying to figure out what it's going to do, in the longer range. But let's show you some model runs. So this is the GFS from this morning, and let's see if there's any kind of locking in of storm systems and the longer range in some of these models. So this is the GFS. We're going to start off Wednesday afternoon, the 26th. Here's the date up here. Date is also right here. It might be kind of small on your screen, but let's get this in motion. So there's some northern stream energy. When you hear me say northern stream energy, it's just energy coming down from the north, and it's not really attaching to any kind of southern stream energy. So normally it's a weaker storm system, and they'll fly down with a jet that kind of is positioned a little bit further north, so therefore they don't really dig much. They just only affect the northern states. But this will fly through. Not a lot of cold air associated with it, so some areas might just see rain, some snow. And then a trough digs down Thursday into Friday. Now, this will bring a storm system across the eastern U.S. You can see that 540 line dipping down, which means we have a cold front probably coming down right here, along with some sort of storm system associated with this trough. Now, this has trended more stronger. So this is looking like a rainmaker across most of the eastern states into Thursday. And then that moves on away. A little cold air comes in behind it for the weekend. And then here comes a clipper that dives in behind it with a reinforcing trough. This could bring some snow across the Great Lakes into the interior Northeast. We start to get into March 1, 2, and maybe a deeper shot of cold air as we're getting into the about a week from today. You see how the 540 lines right here and the blue lines are kind of bunching up together. That means there's a good shot of cold air. So it looks like we still got a ridge spiking out west. And then that cold shot kind of moderates and it warms up again. Here comes a warmer system. We're getting between that day 7 and 10 time frame. GFS has some sort of storm system right here. Whether that is a larger storm system, we haven't determined that yet. But we start to get about day 10. Now, this is when we start to enter that active period I'm watching. We're getting into the evening of the 4th of March. Here comes a storm shooting across the middle of the country, 993 low. This is ejecting. Cold air on top. Could have a stronger winter storm right here in the middle of the country. It's not a forecast. It kind of doesn't fully eject, like goes northwest to northeast. Southwest to northeast. It sort of goes zonal as we have pressing heights with a cold high that kind of presses down on this. This makes it go more west to east. So 994 low next Wednesday morning, based off the GFS, not a forecast, cutting across areas in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, snow on top, big rainmaker, and there'll probably be severe weather to the south of this low. And then this moves into the northeast. It's a pretty strong storm system. It's a big rainmaker for areas along, the coastal regions of the northeast, but it's a snowmaker for the interior northeast, big one too. And then that kind of sweeps through and cold air kind of follows, and we continue to have active weather out west, and another storm system moves in about 300 hours out. This is pretty far out, guys, March 7th. But I've told you this for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 days, that March 5th to 10th, and maybe even onward, is a time period to really watch for some unsettled weather, maybe a stronger storm system. Here comes another low cutting across the country. And, we don't look at any of this, any one model run, and say this is exactly what's going to happen. What we look at when we get past day 10 especially is, are we getting a lot of storm systems flying through? That would tell us that at least the models are trying to lock in on a more active period. If we weren't seeing a lot of energy, then we would probably have it reflected on the Climate Prediction Center that it was going to be more of a drier look. But you saw the 8 to 14 day outlook. It showed most of the country having above average chances of precipitation. So, and it makes sense when you look at the GFS. Here comes another storm system next. Well, this is like the Saturday, March 8th, big storm system. This would be a big snowmaker for even the I-95 corridor if that was to happen. And then here comes another big storm system around March 10th, March 9th and the 10th. This is a big cutter. But, it's crazy, and we're going to get wild model swings. For example, if I zoom into this and I look at the run from overnight, this is a huge, what we call fantasy run. Now, please do not get all excited about this. Believe it or not, there's people that look at these long range guidance and they actually believe that that's 100% what's going to happen. But if you look at the run last night, showed a massive, huge, wet snowstorm for areas of the southeast. I mean, even my neck of the woods, it dropped almost a foot of snow. So we're just getting some wild runs, and we're going to get some wild swings in this time period. Now, the Euro normally does not pump out these fantasy runs as easy as, say, the GFS, but this is Wednesday afternoon, the 26th. There's that Clipper energy, and even this, even the Euro's trend to more of a more precipitation storm. Not a strong storm system, but it's showing more precipitation as we're getting to Thursday evening. We got some rain moving all the way down into the southeast, dipping the jet here. And mainly a rainmaker, even for the northeast. And then the cold air kind of follows, maybe some northwest flow snow in the Appalachian Mountains. And then here comes an aggressive clipper that really dives down. This is a much stronger, even in the 980s as far as a millibar at one point. And this kind of flies through Ontario into areas of Quebec, but stays to the north because on the Euro, this kind of secondary push of cold air deeper into next weekend doesn't dive as far south. It kind of stays bottled up to the north. But here comes a little low down here, and then we start to get between that day 7 and 10 time frame, which is kind of the beginning time frame of a more active period as we get closer to the 4th and 5th. And as we're getting into the 4th, here comes a stronger storm system, and the GFS kind of has this storm system around the same geographical area and time frame also. And low pressure 999 shooting across Iowa, and it kind of ejects, and here comes a trough digging down, and then here comes a low forming off the base of this trough. You can see where it is based off that 540 line. And this could bring maybe some heavy rain, strong winds, maybe even a severe weather threat, mainly a rainmaker for the Northeast, and the cold air blasts through. And then we start to get to the 6th, then to the 7th. Here comes another storm system, and the Euro wants to try to do a coastal low right here with some snow getting thrown into New England, the Northeast. I mean, pretty far out, March, 8th, 9th, 10th. There's something to watch in this time frame. A lot of cold air drops down. I'm telling you, early March is going to do something. I mean, I would say the first 3 or 4, maybe 5 days of March, maybe not a whole lot. But as we get past the March 5th time frame, I've said it over the last few videos, I really think something is there to watch. And if you look at the Euro ensemble, so just remember, all right, let's see if we can draw on this. And just remember, the blues and even the greens you see on your screen, that's lower pressure, a trough, a dip in the jet, some sort of storm system. It stands for lower pressure at 500 millibars. So normally we'll bring a shot of cold air with it. And then we got this stuff right here, which is the yellows, the orange, the reds. That's a ridge of high pressure. Normally that brings above average temperatures, calmer conditions. And this doesn't always tell the story, because that's at 500 millibars, several thousand feet up in the air. But it gauges our pattern very well. It tells us kind of what's going on, what's driving it, and all that stuff. So if we keep this going here, here comes, remember I just told you later this work week, we're going to have some sort of storm system across the eastern U.S., and this reflects well. You see the blues, lower pressure over the eastern U.S., so this will swing in, swing out pretty quick, little shot of cold air behind it. And then here comes the reinforcing shot of cold air for later in the weekend, next weekend. This will try to bring cold air all the way down into the southeast. It's really only affecting the eastern U.S. though, so cold air always likes to come down the backside of this trough. And then we could have some sort of storm system right here, mainly northern stream driven. I don't think it'll affect much of the southeast. And then we keep going. That heads on out. Spike in the ridge builds in. Trough starts to dig. Down into, there's a cat behind me, I just heard it, into the western U.S. There's some sort of trough showing up, spiking of the ridge right here. You're probably starting to get some cold air coming down here. I know you're thinking, well, Mitch, how is this cold air? Well, remember, this is up in the upper levels of the atmosphere, 500 millibars. I mean, and I don't have all the numbers memorized and conversions, but if you type in what is 500 millibars compared to feet, it'll tell you, but it's several thousand feet up in the air. I think like 20,000 feet up in the air. So this is what it looks like up there. So, I mean, at the surface, this is cold air sliding down into this dip. Now, it makes more sense as I continue to move it forward here. And I watch what happens. This trough swings into the eastern U.S. And remember, this blue is lower pressure. So you can already tell that there's a lot of energy coming off the Pacific into the Rockies. At the same time, still got this spiking ridge up into Alaska. This is dislodging cold air into this dip right here in the jet. Cold air, kind of a bit of a cross-polar flow from the Arctic up here. Energy coming through here. I know that's a lot of lines, but all of a sudden, boom, around 300 hours out. I know it's pretty far. It looks like we got a lot of cold air diving down. I mean, it looks like we got a lot. I mean, into all portions of the lower 48. Looks like it's targeting kind of the eastern half of the lower 48, but this is coming right down out of Canada. We're probably going to have energy coming through here, and this is going to symbolize a pretty active pattern, I think. And look at that. Look at that tall, sharp trough. And, I think, and this is around like March 9th. I really think something is going to happen into here. I think we're going to have energy kind of diving into here, through here, plenty of cold air funneling down into this energy. And I just think that's a huge, I know it looks like a big blob of blue, but something is going to happen here. It's a huge area of lower pressure. I think we're going to have energy diving through here. And if we look at, let's look at this. Yeah. So this is 200 millibar, the ensemble jet. So where you're seeing these greens, yellows, even orange, this is where all of our energy is cruising. If we have a dip in the jet like this, like it's showing up on ensemble guidance, so all your energy is kind of just shooting through here, cold air funneling down. So we're gonna have something's gonna happen. I really do think somewhere between the 5th and the 10th, some sort of high impact storm system, and I think we could get 2. So that's my shot. I've been kind of honking the horn at that for a while, and I'm going to stick to my guns. And, the GFS ensemble shows this too. As we keep rolling, there's the system late this work week into the weekend. And here comes the reinforcing trough right there as it digs down across the northeast. Here comes a storm system into the western U.S. And same thing with the Euro ensemble. It sort of amplifies into a trough, and a lot of energy coming through here. It's symbolized by the lower pressure in blue. Cold air dropping down with, looks like, probably energy coming down from the northern stream too. And, something's just going to happen. Something's going to happen right into there. So, but as far as temperatures, when you compare the blues that I just showed you and stuff like that, well, in most of the country, and this is for Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, it's going to be above average temperature-wise. Nice little warm-up. I'm looking forward to it. 70s in my neck of the woods. But here comes that cold front for the weekend. That'll cool down the southeast and areas of the eastern U.S. Reinforcing shot right there until later next weekend, early next week. This will bring a sharp cold front, especially for the northeast, but also a little bit for the southeast too. This will bring temperatures compared to average 5 to 15 degrees below average. So, and then here comes the warm up of the middle country, and here comes the cool down for the west. So it fits the pattern I just showed you as a trough digs down kind of between days 7 and 10 into the western U.S., cools y'all down, brief warm up for the central and eastern U.S., and then that trough transitions into the eastern U.S., and then we continue just to have a lot of energy flying over the western U.S. And, most of the country, as we're getting into the late 200s as far as hours, and then into the 300 kind of hour time frame, most of the country begins to cool off. And, unfortunately I would say for spring weather fans, March can be a wild back and forth month. We can have wild stuff in the month of March. But I do think it's going to be more winter-like than spring-like, especially for the eastern U.S. for the first half of March. Now, the first few days, maybe not, but I would say the first half in general, I think it's going to be below average for the eastern half. After we're past this time frame, I think we'll be able to say that. So, now, the MJO forcing, it supports this also. Right now we're about phase 8, maybe in more of a null phase. And I know this is a little bit more difficult to explain, so I'll just try to break this down a little bit. So phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, and in some areas even phase 7, that's warmer phases in the winter. Okay, and that's why, when we were cruising through January, this is like January 26th, 28th, 30th. This is February 1, 3, 5, 7. That's why in this entire region right here, we had record high temperatures across the southeast and the eastern U.S. We were very warm. Now, the northeast was able to still score a little bit in that time frame, but this is the reason why, most of the south really torched. But then as we got closer to Valentine's Day, we started creeping out of phase 7 into phase 8. Phase 8. Phase 1, Phase 2, and even Phase 3, especially in March, are colder phases. So we got into Phase 8, and the 17th, this is 19, what is it, the 23rd, I believe, right now. So we got into Phase 8, colder phase in February, and that's, big reason why we got that winter storm pretty far south over the last week. It makes sense. Now, it says we're going to get into Phase 1, which is a pretty good phase for winter weather. And it looks like, we're right around here. So we might be in Phase 8, Phase 1-ish. But it looks like, and it's hard to see, but it looks like the area, as we finish off February and get into early March, just kind of gets jumbled up in Phase 1. But, you got some models, MJO models that, try to almost get it all the way into Phase 2 as we get into the first several days of March. But then everything has it hooking back. So it doesn't really want to get back into the warmer phases. So this tells me that we're going to stay cool for a while. And even the GFS ensemble shows it actually slipping into phase 2 and trying to get to phase 3. So some of them are a little bit different. But what I'm trying to say is, as far as MJO pulse phasing, we're still in the cooler phases. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to get warm-ups. Just like in the warmer phase, it doesn't mean we're not going to get cool downs. But I do think these warm-ups might not last very long, at least for now. That could change. So that's a long-range discussion. As far as what's happening right now, we got a lot of rain falling across. Let's get this back in motion. Falling across the Louisiana, the deep south areas of Mississippi, starting to move into even the panhandle of Florida and southern Alabama. We got some northern stream energy shooting across areas of the Great Lakes. Not sure if this is all hitting the ground. Some of it probably is, but we continue to just have flurries, even some lake effect snow off Ontario. You guys don't need any more snow up here. Good gracious, seeing some of the videos and stuff out of this area is just quite ridiculous. But a lot of energy shooting across the Pacific Northwest. This is mainly a warm storm system, not a lot of cold air associated with it as a ridge begins to flex out west. But this is what's going on right now. Watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have a lot of avalanche warnings, a lot of flood watches, and not a lot of winter weather alerts. If we do, they're just winter weather advisories for the higher elevations. And this is because this is a warmer system. We got snow melt. This is going to begin to get the avalanches going. And we got flood watches just for all the rain. But most of the Southwest is going to stay pretty dry. And the Central Rockies pretty dry because, most of the energy shooting off to the north. We got some winter weather advisories into the Tug Hill Plateau off Ontario and some special weather statements just due to, looks like some patchy freezing drizzle and maybe a little bit of snow. So outside of that, we're starting to see less and less of these flood warnings as it begins to dry out from all that rain last week. But as far as the risk for thunderstorms today, just a general risk of thunderstorms in these areas. We've had a quiet start to that, late winter severe weather season so far, but things could flip in a dime. It really can. So just remember that. Now we do have in these areas over here in the Pacific Northwest in the yellow, this is where we have a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being exceeded within 25 miles in a given location. So just be careful with the flash flooding out here. Speaking of future radar possibilities here in the southeast today, all that rain will continue to impact Louisiana. We even have some back building of it. And then rain will continue to just impact most of southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, into the panhandle of Florida throughout the evening. And by the time we get into the overnight hours, if you like a rainy night in northern areas of Florida and the panhandle of Florida, southern Georgia, you'll like tonight. Look at those thunderstorms out in the Gulf. Those look pretty intense, really intense. But we get into tomorrow morning, the rain will take over most of the peninsula of Florida. We could get some strong thunderstorms down the southern tip of Florida tomorrow afternoon. And then this will head off into the Bahamas where we could get some strong storms late tomorrow night. So we'll see what happens with that. But as far as rainfall with Florida, between now and the next 48 hours, Miami could get over almost 2 inches of rain. Tampa around an inch, give or take. Orlando about a half an inch of rain. And a few tenths of an inch of rain up here in northern Florida. Maybe more near like Panama City, Pensacola. Could get some more rain. Mobile going for around an inch. So the northeast today, a little bit of snow flying around that you don't really see on radar, but there is snow flying around the interior northeast. And we'll continue to probably get this most of the day. Just some flurries, snow, maybe some bursts of snow. We get into tomorrow morning and it looks like a quiet start. Maybe some energy heading out of Canada into the northeast by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, but no big storm system at all. The south central U.S., now we do have that rain we just talked about in Louisiana. This will continue for most of the day, but I do think as we're getting into tomorrow, things will begin to calm down. But rainfall between now and, the next 48 hours, and this is really the next 24, another couple inches of rain for the Bayou, Louisiana, Gulfport, maybe an inch, inch and a half, Hattiesburg around an inch. So another soaker today, but it will end later tonight if you're sick of the rain. And then the north central U.S., maybe some flurries. It will begin to warm up in this area. In fact, it'll warm up above freezing for most areas. But, we actually could get some rain. Maybe some rain like later tonight into the overnight hours, really into tomorrow morning for the eastern UP of Michigan. And then we might wake up to just some rain across areas of the Great Lakes region, the upper Midwest tomorrow. And then out west, A lot of rain will continue to move into northern Cal, points north into Oregon and Washington, Idaho, Montana. You got to get way up there for this to be snow. I mean, even the Cascades, I mean, you got to get way up there. This is definitely a warmer system. It's actually too warm to really even get snow in the Olympic Mountains, so you know it's got to be warm for that. But you continue to get into Monday morning, and here comes another system. So it's just system after system right now up here, but these are definitely not great snow makers if you're a ski resort way up there. And rainfall between now and the next 48 hours. I'm not even going to pull up snow because, I mean, you got to get way up there. But Seattle could get inch and a half, kind of an inch and a half kind of deal here around the Seattle metro, give south and north of it. You know, we get down to Portland around 2 inches of rain. And just to take a look at Oregon here, Eugene about 2 inches of rain, Medford about a half an inch of rain, maybe a little bit more. And then we take a look at, say, Idaho. And some of this will be snow, but most of this is rain, honestly. But this is how much precipitation. I will pull up snow in this area. You got to get way on up there for this to be snow. So, the eastern U.S., thaw's coming up. Still hanging on to some chilly temperatures in certain areas, but it's definitely starting to warm up. Some 60s across the southeast, but there will still be a lot of 30s and 40s out there. Look how warm it's starting to get into the middle of the country. I mean, check this out. I mean, some 70s all the way up into South Dakota today. Definitely a thaw coming up from Minnesota. And nice conditions down to Oklahoma, Texas. It's warm. And LA, San Diego, very nice conditions. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow morning. Have a great ending to your weekend. And like I said, I'll try to get caught up with those comments, later on this afternoon to this evening. God bless.